Welcome to the first ever car edition of Pittsburgh Hockey Now's, I guess we'll call it a post game or whatever have you. Currently driving back from New York to Pittsburgh for the game Saturday night against the Toronto Maple Leafs. But did a little Q&A on Twitter, and so I wanted to get to a couple of those questions. I'm going to try to keep my eyes on the road, and maybe I'll pull over at a little rest stop here because I'm really tight on time. Insert a couple of photos so you're not staring at me the entire time. Let's dive into this. The Penguins lose to the Rangers 4-2 on Friday. You might say, oh, well, as expected. The funny thing was, it was their greatest hits album. Twice the Penguins scored, and then twice within 90 seconds, they gave up a goal. They gave up the tying goal at 1-1, and then they gave up what was the winning goal, 3-2, after Philip Tomasino scored his third goal in 5 games for the Penguins. So I want to get into, I think the large portion of the questions Friday night, or statements rather, really revolved around Matt Grzelcyk, Ryan Graves, Jack St. Ivany, always with a Mike Sullivan chaser, right? It's always Mike Sullivan's fault. Whoever is playing shouldn't be playing. Whoever's not playing should be playing. And of course, if the coach weren't an idiot, well, he would know this, right? How quickly I think a lot of you forget exactly how frustrated and angry you were with Ryan Graves. He very much deserved to come out of the lineup. Actually, if you go back 6 or 7 games, both Grzelcyk and Graves were to come out of the lineup. Don't forget that Sullivan was going to roll with Shea and Pickering as his third pairing, or Shea and St. Ivany, or some combination of the three. In fact, as I say it out loud, Pickering was going up to the top pairing with Chris Letang, and Shea and St. Ivany were going to be the third pairing. And everybody rejoiced, and everybody, there was dancing and celebrating in the streets until Owen Pickering came down with an illness, couldn't play the next couple of games, which actually seemed to spur Grzelcyk just a little bit. So Graves has remained out of the lineup. He's now been scratched in 8 of the Penguins games. He's only played 20 this season, while Grzelcyk has had, short scratches. What else are the Penguins going to do in this situation? There really isn't anything that a coach can do right now. So I'm going to take Mike Sullivan off the hot seat for this issue, because it truly rests on the players, for one, and 2, the general manager, Kyle Dubas. This is blue line construction. Actually, I tend to think it's blue line construction 101. The Penguins have now blown 9 multi-goal leads this year after they gave up their second 3-goal lead of the season against Florida on Tuesday. So, okay, Dan, what do you mean? What does all of this have to do with the price of tea in China? I'm coming to the very real conclusion, and firm as well, that if the Penguins had a more robust blue line, maybe I'll say it even differently, if they had a competent professional blue line, the Penguins would have a winning record. I've come to believe this. I've also come to suspect, though not know, I've come to suspect the players themselves are starting to believe the same thing. 2 weeks ago, actually 3 weeks ago, Chris Letang had that very cryptic phrase to Pittsburgh Hockey Now. I think it's some individual problems that are carrying over to the team. He didn't mean personal problems. He just meant people struggling with their individual games that were harming the team. Rather interesting when you put it that way, isn't it? Matt Grzelcyk has certainly had trouble with his game. Ryan Graves has certainly had trouble with his game. Chris Letang, I think, has been a little bit looser than maybe he has wanted. He's made a few more mistakes defensively than he certainly has. But he's also trying to make up for it, I think, by being more, defensive. You don't see Chris Letang pinching and rushing this year. Although I know for certain that his metrics, like his skating speed and agility, are right on par with the rest of his career. So it's not like he's losing a step. He's simply trying to adjust his game, and maybe it's not always going so well. So that was about 3 different questions, right? What to do with Matt Grzelcyk, Ryan Graves? Why isn't Ryan Graves playing instead of Matt Grzelcyk? Pick your poison. Do you want cyanide or hemlock? There isn't a good decision. There isn't a good choice anywhere to be had in there. A couple of the Q&A questions dealt with reinserting Jack St. Ivany into the lineup. I think that question was more born of what St. Ivany did last year. Certainly wasn't born of what he did this year. And asking Mike Sullivan about that just a couple of days ago, the Penguins had hoped to keep him around and actually keep him in the lineup, letting him work through whatever struggles he was going through. They came to a decision and a point where they couldn't do that any longer. I don't disagree, actually. St. Ivany doesn't have the upside of a skating defenseman. He is a stay-at-home, tight-gapped, tough defenseman. So when he's not being those 3 things, or if he's trying to be those 3 things and falling short, you're in trouble. So watching he and Graves as a third pairing, or even the one game that Ryan Shea and St. Ivany were repaired together certainly wasn't a masterpiece for either of them. Now what the Penguins are left with, right, is essentially 6 or 7 defensemen who are horribly mismatched. Ryan Shea shouldn't be on the right side. But they only have 2 righties, and Graves really can't play the right side. They even have flirted with putting Grzelcyk over there, and that didn't go so well either. So the Penguins have 2 right-handed defensemen, 3 left-handed defensemen who are struggling, and Marcus Pettersson. Poor Marcus Pettersson. And I think you will know when Kyle Dubas has waved the white flag on this team when he trades Pettersson, because they will truly have absolutely no blue line or defense when Dubas does that. So this is kind of the car talk. Actually, I maybe should call it that. Car talk. Pittsburgh Hockey Now car talk. A couple of other questions really dove to the heart of the Penguins' lines. Some people really hitting out at Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin in the Q&As and the comments section. I'm not going to go there because, well, one, everybody had a bad game on Friday. The only person that I can say truly had a good game would be Blake Lizotte. Philip Tomasino, and here's maybe bonus if you've been crazy enough to stick around through my rambling this far. Here's a little juice on Tomasino. I know fans are already getting very attached to him because he's scoring goals. What Tomasino's problem has always been is his game if he's not. How is he going to help the team if he's not scoring goals? Now, if he scores 3 goals in every 5 games, well, the Penguins will live with the deficiencies. Even Mike Sullivan will live with those deficiencies, right? How do I look? But unless he is a 40-goal scorer, he's not going to score, 3 and 5. That's going to be a problem. Matt Nieto, Kevin Hayes have certainly become... Sorry, I'm on 80, so I'm going to be bouncing up and down a little bit. Nieto and Kevin Hayes have become sort of the scapegoats du jour. But let me ask you, if you're worried about 2 fourth-line wingers, either your team has no chance and you're fixating, or it's a great team and those are your only 2 weak spots. I think you know which way I'm going to tell you there. To put Cody Glass in the lineup, Sullivan scratched Nieto on Friday. Very fair. Here's the Puljujarvi question that frustrates me a little bit, because I can see Puljujarvi becoming Daniel Sprong Part 2, where I explain until I'm blue in the face exactly why he's not in the lineup, and then commenters, everybody says, but look at his offense, he scores points. Did he really? Puljujarvi was the beneficiary of some good games by Drew O'Connor and some others. And yeah, he actually finished a few of his chances. The frustration on Sullivan's part, and I saw it, I don't know if I fully agree with Sullivan, but I'm going to give him an understanding answer on this one. If you need a fourth liner to be defensive, to kill penalties, to hold the fort, Jesse Puljujarvi is not that guy. He just isn't. So you have to flip him up a line or 2 lines, which means somebody else who isn't a defensive stalwart or a penalty killer is coming down to the fourth line to inhabit that role. So it's much easier to keep Kevin Hayes in the lineup. Also, there is a second reason, and it's the same reason that Jeff Carter remained in the lineup last year. Face-offs. Mike Sullivan loves to have another face-off guy on the fourth line because they take so many draws in the defensive zone, especially in the third period. It's hard to argue with that. Now, you could say, well, if Puljujarvi added an extra point per game, they wouldn't need as many defensive zone draws in the third period. A little bit of a reach. I suspect Puljujarvi will be in the lineup on Saturday against Toronto. Okay? I suspect he'll be in there, whether it's for Nieto or Kevin Hayes. I do recall Cody Glass and Puljujarvi connecting on some offense, so maybe the Penguins will try to, restart that. But I still, it doesn't seem like Mike Sullivan to do something like that. I kind of feel like Sullivan was really upset last night. You saw the minute 8 video on this YouTube channel, and I was the guy who leads off with the first question. I figured, what the heck? Everyone sort of put their hands in their pockets, and I bore in on it, right? So Chris Letang said there was nothing good to take from this. Some other guys said similar. And so I just simply asked Sullivan the same question. So the players said there was nothing good to take from this. Do you agree? What's your assessment? And he's not a humorous guy, at least with us. Maybe he's Shecky Green in private, but he said it was our worst game. Everything we told the players to do, they did the opposite. We wanted to control the puck at the points, and we gave up 6 odd man rushes. We wanted to be physical, and we didn't hit anybody all night. It really was that kind of game. Fortunately for the Penguins, the Rangers are also mired in their own malaise as well. Fast forwarding all of that to Saturday, we're gonna find out together just how angry was Sullivan and at who. There's not a whole lot he can do with the defense, but there is some things he can do with the forwards. don't forget, kids. I have to keep my eyes on the road, by the way. Don't forget, the Penguins had just won 4 in a row. 4 very different games, 2 of which they gave up big leads, but held on to win. A very tight scoring, tight checking game against Boston. And a blowout win against Calgary. If you know who this team is, if you can figure it out, I'm all ears. I feel like I've got my hooks into them as well as anybody. And night to night, if I were a gambler, I would bet on anything else but this Penguins team. I would bet on amateur highlight in India at 3 in the morning before I bet on the Penguins. Okay, so with all of that said, I have managed to keep the car between the lines, and I'm somewhere just past 11:15. I guess that would have been Williamsport, so I'm between Williamsport and Lockhaven now at about 10 to 2. Let's see if I can make it to PPG by 5 o'clock. Eastbound and down. Long way to go and a short time to get there. Thanks for watching. I have actually got several more long car rides coming up. The Montreal-Ottawa trip is on the way, and there just is never any flights for that road trip, so I have to drive it this time again too. Probably do a couple more of these. Let me know what you think. Like, Dan, get a microphone, or Dan, don't ever do this again. Either way, it's cool. Have fun.